think the concept or the notion that there's a thing called leisure is a pretty 20th century perspective. We live in a world now where I think we start to merge the way that we work and operate as individuals. We talk a lot about the notion of leisure, which is this combination of business and leisure. And I think the emergence of a leisure class and a group of people who are very much changing the way that they actually seek to use their leisure time compared to how they actually have to now use their business time, their working time, has changed enormously and will continue to change.
If you think about traditional leisure pursuits, were quite passive and were designed, I think, in essence to relax you out of work. I think increasingly when we look at leisure, or pleasure as we call it, it's quite an active, what I call vertical, muscular sense of leisure and engagement. It's sometimes about learning, it's about journey, it's about adventure, it's about narrative, it's about experience. So even the sense of how we used to play games and the language we describe to use the notion of leisure has changed drastically. And I think once you see that in one generation, the language changing, the generation coming behind us have a completely different sense of what it is to be engaged and to be active and to be immersed in the kind of world and the culture around them. I think the notion of the reviewer to a lot of people seems somehow redundant. If you think about TripAdvisor and pretty much every crowdsourcing, peer-to-peer site, there is a sense that everybody can be a critic. And I think what we need to understand is that volume in itself isn't value. Value requires a different kind of effort, and I think critics by their nature will have a history and a pedigree and a provenance, and I mean this across every category, which people increasingly appreciate, because ultimately it comes down to craft. And I think in the way that we wouldn't expect a person to walk into an operating theatre and declare that they're a brain surgeon overnight and allow them to do it, there is an assumption that, well, of course I can have an opinion about this, I'll take a punt at it, and therefore you take them seriously. And I think a lot of people in the world now of volume-based journalism are seeking out value and seeking out names within the value that have the characteristics they like.
I think the notion of originality in art is, of course, central to an understanding of the value of art, and I think the idea that we've done everything and everything that could be said has already been said, I think is frankly ridiculous, because people are constantly expressing themselves in new and interesting and often deeply informed ways. I think also we're only just beginning to scratch the surface at the point or the intersection between culture and digital. And again, that's an area where lots of people of a certain age will start to yawn or kind of think, you can't possibly put the culture and digital together. We've barely started to really consider culture on our mobile phone and art on our mobile phone. And again, a whole generation of people will say, well, that's ridiculous. And frankly, that's just so naff. And why on earth would you put culture on your mobile phone? And yet we don't think that way about a book. And we don't even question the idea that you can't have art in a book, or you can't have great literature in a book, because it exists in that format. It's only a format, and the mobile phone is only a format, but we haven't really begun to explore the potential of that format from a cultural perspective. So there is so much opportunity for originality that we're only just beginning to see.